All right, welcome. Today, we're going to tackle a challenge that, believe it or not, pops up all the time in real life, mastering simple equations that have fractions in them. Now, I know that might sound a little tricky, but I promise, stick with me, and by the end of this, you'll be solving these things like it's second nature.
And I'm not kidding, they are everywhere. Just think about it for a second. Whether you're in a busy market in Aba, helping count the day's sales up in Kano, or my personal favorite, trying to figure out how to fairly share that last piece of amazing suya with your friends in Legos, guess what? You're using fractions. It's just the language we use for sharing and splitting things up.
Okay, so here's our game plan. To really conquer this, we've got two big missions ahead of us. First, we're going to become code crackers. That's where we learn the mechanics, how to actually solve the equation. Then we'll become story translators, which is where we take real-world problems and turn them into those very same math puzzles we just learned how to solve. Ready? Let's get right into it. First up is Mission 1, cracking the code. This is all about getting down the fundamentals, the real nuts and bolts of how these equations work.
So what even is an equation? Honestly, the best way to picture it is like a perfectly balanced scale. Seriously, whatever you do to one side of that scale, you absolutely have to do the exact same thing to the other side to keep it from tipping over. Our mission is to figure out what that mystery value is, we usually call it x, without messing up that perfect balance.
So how do we actually do it? Well, it's basically a simple three-step recipe. First, you spot your target. That's the unknown variable. Second, and this right here is the pro tip, so listen up, we get rid of the fraction. Why? Because let's be honest, working with whole numbers is just so much easier, right? It totally cuts down on the chances of making a simple mistake. And then third, we just use a bit of basic algebra to get that unknown thing all by itself.
All right, enough talk. Let's put this recipe to the test. Here's our first practice equation right here. Our job is to figure out the value of x in this problem. X divided by 4 plus 2 equals 6. Okay, first things first, we want to start getting that term with the x in it alone. Right now, it has a plus 2 hanging out next to it, so we do the opposite. We subtract 2. And remember our golden rule, the balanced scale? We have to subtract that 2 from both sides. And that leaves us with a much cleaner problem. X divided by 4 equals 4.
And now for what I think is the most important step for these kinds of problems, clearing out that fraction. Remember that pro tip? This is it in action. The x is being divided by 4, so to cancel that out, we do the opposite. We multiply both sides by 4. See how that works? It gets rid of the denominator on the left, leaving our x all by itself, and makes the rest of this a piece of cake.
And boom, that gives us our answer. 4 times 4 is, of course, 16. And just like that, mission 1 is complete. See? You now have the core skill to solve a simple fractional equation. That was excellent work. So let's level up and move on to our second and I think more creative challenge. Welcome to Mission 2, translate the story. This is where the math hits the real world. Okay, so the key skill here is all about translation. We're going to take a regular story, about sharing money or counting sacks of gari or anything really, and our job is to convert that story into a clean, solvable math equation, just like the one we crushed in Mission 1. All right, it's time for the final boss level. This next challenge, which I'm calling the Gary Sack Mission, is going to pull together everything we've just learned. It's a classic word problem that's going to make us both translate the story and solve the equation we create. Let's really listen to the story here. A farmer, Papa Emeka, sells 2/3 of his Gary sacks. Okay, then he gives away 5 whole sacks to his neighbor. After all that, he looks and sees he has 15 sacks left. So the big question is, how many sacks, let's call that S, did he have to begin with? Let's break this story down into math pieces. Our big mystery, the unknown, is S, the total number of sacks he started with. The amount he sold is 2/3 of his total, so we write that as 2/3 S. The amount he just gave away is a simple 5. And what's left over at the very end is 15. See? We've just pulled the math right out of the story. Now, we just put those pieces together to tell the whole story in one sentence. You take the starting amount, S, you subtract what he sold, you subtract what he gave away, and that equals what he has left. So our final translated equation is S minus 2/3 S minus 5 equals 15. The translation is done. Perfect.
And look at that. We're right back in Mission 1 territory. We know exactly how to solve this. First, let's clean it up a bit by combining the s terms. If you have one whole s and you take away 2/3 of an s, they're left with 1/3 of an s. So our equation gets simpler. 1/3 s minus 5 equals 15.
Next up, we just follow our recipe. To start isolating that s term, we need to deal with that minus 5. So we do the opposite. We add 5 to both sides of our balanced scale. That gives us 1/3 s equals 20. We are so close. And now for the final move. Let's clear that last fraction. S is being divided by 3, so what do? We multiply both sides by 3. On the left, the 3's just cancel each other out, leaving us with s. And on the right, we have 20 times 3. Which gives us our grand finale answer, 60. Papa Emeka started his day with 60 sacks of Gary. We did it. We took a story, turned it into math, and solved it. Fantastic stuff. So before we wrap up, let's do a quick final checklist to recap the 2 super important skills you've just picked up in this explainer. Your checklist is simple, but it's really powerful. First, you can now solve these equations by getting those pesky fractions out of the way. Check. And second, you can now look at a word problem and not panic, because you know the secret is translation, turning the story into math. Check. You've officially leveled up on both goals. So there you have it. You've proven you can do both sides of this. You can handle the pure algebra, and you can translate a real-world story into that algebra. You are totally equipped to handle these problems. So the only question I have left for you is, what problem are you going to solve next?